Hey, hello and welcome. Today we're going to be learning how to use HookState for state management in React applications. In the past, I've created tutorials on other state management tools like the Context API and Redux Toolkit. You can check them out on my YouTube channel. But I recently gave HookState a shot, and I can say that it's actually the easiest state management solution I've used so far. It's easy to use, fast, feature-rich, and has first-class TypeScript support. It's also very extensible. This means that we can customize our state hooks or extend it with extra features like state validation and an out-of-the-box ability to persist state in a browser's local storage. Now, easy to use is not just a catchphrase. It's actually easy to use. Creating a global state is as simple as this line of code. There's no need for any boilerplate setup. There's no need to wrap your application in a provider. Just create your state, export it, and use it. In this video, we'll be learning how to use HookState for state management, and we'll do so by building a chat application. It's totally okay if you don't want to build this with me. You can skip to whatever part of the tutorial you want from the video description. But I recommend that you do, because that's the best way to learn. Let's get started. Hey, alright. We're going to start by creating a new React application, and we'll be using create React app for this. So write on a terminal npx create React app, and we want to name our application HookState chat. Okay, with that done successfully, let's open up our application in our text editor of choice. I'll be using WebStorm IDE. And then HookState chat. Nice. With a React application created successfully, let's see how we can install HookState. Back to the HookState documentation, we'll click on Get Started, and we can see the installation command for HookState when we scroll down. Right here we have npm install HookState/core or yarn add HookState/core. The reason we have /core here is because HookState has other extensions. Remember, we talked about HookState being very extensible. So when we scroll down to the extensions section and click on overview, we can see the other extensions that HookState offers, like the initial plugin, which enables access to an initial value of a state, the touch plugin, which helps with tracking of touched form fields, validation for validating form fields, error/warning messages, persistence for storing state in a browser's local storage, and there's the broadcasted plugin for enabling synchronization of a state across browser tabs. When you scroll down, you see that there are also other plugins. But for this tutorial, we'll be focusing on the HookState core features. Now let's go back to the getting started section. And when we scroll down, we want to copy one of these installation commands. I'll be using yarn for this tutorial. So let's copy yarn add, and back to our terminal. We want to do this inside the HookState chat directory. So you have to cd into that directory. If you're doing this with an IDE like a WebStorm, you'd have your terminal right inside of it. Now let's paste our installation command. We have yarn add at HookState/core. Alright, now that we have that successfully installed, we can start using HookState. But before we dive right in, let's have a second look at what we're going to be building. Alright, this is what we're going to be building. We have two chat windows which can interact with each other. So these are two different components, but they have access to a global state. You can see we have a Mycroft and Cortana right there. So whatever Mycroft tells Cortana appears on Cortana's left and Mycroft's right. Reverse is the case for Cortana. This is what we're going to be doing in our chat application. I know right now you think that it's a lot of work, but I promise it's not as difficult as you think. And that's because I've already done a lot of work under the hood. Here's a package I built for this tutorial. You can see it's named React Custom Chat. So we're going to be using this so that we won't have to focus on the design and all that. We'll just focus on HookState and its implementation. Let's go back to a terminal and install React Custom Chat. Back to a terminal, we want to stay with yarn. So that's yarn add React Custom Chat. Nice. We can now go back to a text editor or IDE and start building. Alright, over to WebStorm. We want to go over to the src directory and remove the files we won't be needing. just so that our code base will look simpler. We'll start by removing the app.test.js file, and let's take out the logo.svg file, the report web vitals setup test. I think we should also take out the index.css file, since the React custom chat package comes with its own style. And we can delete these. You see that WebStorm knows that our code base depends on these files we're deleting. So we have this warning. Do you want to go ahead and delete these files? So let's delete anyway, because we're going right over to the app.js file, and we'll be removing both the logo and app.css files. We also want to remove everything inside the app div, that's from line 5 to line 18. And that's okay for now. I like to stay without the semicolons in my JavaScript code. Let's also make this an arrow function, because we'll be using that in our application, so it's good to stay consistent. All right, we don't need the app.css file. Let's remove it also, and we have just app.js and index.js. Inside the index.js, remember we deleted the report web vitals file, and we also deleted the index.css file, semicolon, semicolon, and out of the way. We also want to take out line 11 to line 15. And we have this. We won't be coming back to the index.js file. Okay, let's create a chat component. These will be two different files inside the src directory. Then we import these components in the app.js file and call them right inside of it. Firstly, we'll create a first person component, and we'll do that inside the src directory. A new file, and we want this to be firstperson.jsx. This component is for Mycroft. We'll create the component const first person, and you see how WebStorm suggests the name of our component based on the name of the file. We have the first person component. We want to export first person, so this is default. Export default first person, and our first person returns a JSX code. On line 1, let's import the chat box component, and this is from React custom chat. Nice. And line 5, we call a chatbox component. We'll go back to the app.js file and import the first person component. We want to call it inside our app's return statement. We'll remove this class name app, and line 5, we have first person, and that's auto imported for us. Let's start up our application and see what it looks like so far. This is npm starts on the terminal. Since I'm using WebStorm, I can click on the start commands in the npm section. Now something is already running. Yes, let's run it somewhere else. Awesome, that's a chat box right there. And by default, the name right here is Jane Doe and the color is blue, but we can change this, and we want to change this to Mycroft. We want to change the header color, the icon color. Then we're going to move this first person component to the left hand side so that the second person component can be on the right. Back to our IDE and over to the first person component. The chat box component expects a setting prop, and you can see the different options in the chat box documentation. I'll leave a link to it in the description of this video. So this settings prop is an object, and for settings we have position, left. We also have nav color, and we want to use green. We have nav text, and the nav text is Mycroft. So this is the first person component, which is Mycroft. Then there's also this option is open. So if we want the chat window to be open by default, we have is open right there, and we can set it to true. Nice. Back to the browser, we have Mycroft right there on the left hand side. Let's create the component for the second person. Back to the src directory, want to create a new file, and we'll name this second person.jsx. Now we'll copy what we have in the first person component and paste it inside the second person, since it's almost the same thing, but we're going to change this to second person, and we'll also change our export statement to second person. Okay, we don't need position right here, so by default it's on the right hand side, but we do need to change the nav color, and for a nav color let's use blue for Cortana. This is blue and nav text as Cortana. Save that. we have the app.js file, and we want to also import the second person component and call it right here on line 8. Nice. This is Mycroft and this is Cortana. Now it's time to implement the message functionality. So you can see that right now if we try to type anything, nothing happens. So hello, this is just blank. We want to implement the message functionality, and here's what we want to do. We need a global state that Mycroft and Cortana can communicate to, so that whenever Mycroft sends a message to Cortana, that gets stored in the global state, and Cortana can access that message from that global state. Cortana does the same thing. Mycroft can access the message from the same global state, and that's where HookState comes in. Let's go back to our IDE and create our global state. Okay, to create a global state, we'll start by creating a file named store. Now, this can be any name you want, and it can also be any place you want. So we're creating a global state in a file named store, but you can actually create your global state anywhere. You can create it inside the app.js file, you can create it inside the first person file, you can create it inside the second person file. As long as you export that state and the component that needs it can import it, you're good. This is a very big HookState advantage. Let's go over to the store.js file, and we'll start by importing create state from HookState. So this is create state, and that's from HookState/core. Create state itself is a function, so we can call it anywhere. But if we want to access that state, we need the useState hook, and this useState hook can only be called inside a React component. Right now we don't need it inside the store.js file. Let's create a global state named store. Right on line 3 we have store, and we're going to be using create state. This create state method expects an argument as its initial state. For our initial state we want an array. Now each message is going to be an object. We have message 1, we have message 2, and we can have message 3. Here's what the message object looks like. So there's the text, which is the message text, and there's also the person property, and this person property can either be primary or secondary. But for simplicity, let's remove the person property for now. We'll come back to that later on. And we want to have just one message object at the moment. Let's export store as default. So this is export default store on line 7. Now we can go over to the first person component and start using our store. Remember, to use a store, we'll need the useState hook from HookState. The useState hook from HookState is different from the React useState hook for creating local states. Let's call it inside of first person component. Right on line 4, we have our message list, and this is equal to the useState hook. Now WebStorm is asking us which useState hook we want. We want the one from HookState. Inside of our useState hook, we are going to pass in an argument, which is the state we want to access, and we want the store we just created. So we have store, that's also automatically imported for us. Same thing with useState on line 2. Now that we have a message list, we can pass it as a prop to the chat box component. This is message list, and this is equal to message list. Now this chat box component has everything you need to know about it inside of its documentation. The message list is going to contain the list of messages. When we send a new message, we're going to add it to the message list state, and that's going to display inside the chat box window. Message list is the message list state we have, but to access the data from our state, we have to use the get method from it. So message list dot get, and we have the data from our state. Let's save this and test it out in our browser. Back to our browser, and inside our first person component you can see the message hey. That's the initial message state we created. The same way we just accessed the message list state inside the first person component is the same way we can access it inside the second person component. So we can just come over to the first person component, copy line 2 and 3, paste it in the second person component, and we can also get the message list on line 6, add it to the second person component. We have message list right there, and then the message list prop. Let's take that from line 15. So this is message list and message list. Now if we go back to the browser, we also have access to the message state in the second person component, that's Cortana. And that's it for accessing a state, but we're not done yet. Let's see how to update our state so that when we write in something here, we can see it inside the chat window. Hey, alright, to update our state, we need to add an onSend message prop to the chat box component, and we'll have to do that on line 7. We have onSend message. This onSend message prop expects a function, and our function is going to tell the chat box component what to do whenever a message is sent. So whenever the user clicks on the send button, the chat box component is going to run the onSend message function. So let's name our function handleSend message. Now this handleSend message function is where we're going to update the state. Let's scroll up and then create the handleSend message function. So we have a handleSend message function, and a handleSend message function is expecting a parameter which is going to represent the new message. So let's name this new message. This parameter is the text. Whatever the user types inside the input box is going to be the value of new message. That means that we're going to update our state with new message as the text. Or with HookState, updating our state is so much easier than other state management solutions. All we need to do is call the merge method of whatever state we want to update. In this case, it's message list. Now, message list has a .merge method. That's MERGE. Inside this .merge method, we want to pass in the new value of our state as its argument. So it's going to take that value and append it to what was there before. There's also the .set method, and this is if we want to give our state a new value. So we want to replace what was there before, we use the .set method. But if we want to append, if we want to update, add to what was there before, we use the .merge method. So we write .merge, and then we have an array right inside of our .merge method. So what's going to happen is going to take this new array and append it to the old array, and then return the new value as the value of the message list state. So we have an array with a message list object. Now this is text, and the text is new message. Alright, with the chat box component, we don't need to know what's going on under the hood. We just know that when we create our function and give it the parameter new message, the value of that parameter is going to be the text that the user types inside the input box. Let's save this and go over to our browser and test it out. Back to a browser, we have hey as the initial state. Let's add a new message. So write hello, and look at that. So that's HookState. Updating state with HookState is relatively easy. Without the merge method, our code would look a lot more complex with us trying to create a new instance of the state with the spread operator or some other method, and add what we want to add to that state before we then return everything as the new value of the state. With HookState, we can just use the .merge method, and it returns everything as the new state. When we go back to our browser, you see that what we have right now is different from the demo we saw earlier in this tutorial. For instance, when we send a message from Mycroft, it's supposed to appear by the right hand side of Mycroft and on the left of Cortana. Remember, we talked about the person property of a message object. Here's what that looks like. So if we have this message list.merge and we have this object on line 9, we can add the person property. So I'm going to break this down so that it's more visible. And we can have a person property. This person property can either be primary or secondary. Now, if it's primary, the message is going to appear on the right, and if it's secondary, the message is going to appear on the left. So let's test this out. Let's write secondary, and we send another message. Hey to you, and look at that, it's on the left. So how do we achieve this in our application? We want it to be primary on Mycroft and secondary on Cortana. And when Cortana sends a message, we want it to be primary on Cortana and secondary on Mycroft. There are different ways to handle this. We can either use separate states for Mycroft and Cortana, or we can use nested state values. Let's learn how to use nested state values with HookState. Now, what we're going to do is come over to the store.js file, and instead of having just one message object, we're going to have two message objects, one for first person and the other for second person. So let's remove what we have on line 4 currently, and we're going to start with first person message list. This is an array, and then we'll have second person message list, and this is also an array. Then everything's in an object. So this is what we have. We have a store, and inside of our store, we have the first person message list as an array, and we have the second person message list as an array. So what we're going to do is whenever we send a message from the first person component, it's going to update the first person message list and set that message as primary, and then update the second message list but set that message as secondary. And when we update from the second person component, it's going to update the second person message list as primary and the first person message list as secondary. So we'll be updating the two properties whenever we send a message, but the value of person is going to be different for each of them. Let's go back to the first person component and give it a go. Right on line 6, we no longer have message list as the store. We have first person message list and we have second person message list inside the store. Remember, the store is now an object that contains two properties, so the first person message list and the second person message list. So what we can do is destructure first person message list and second person message list from the store. So we have first person message list right here and we have second person message list. Let's zoom out a little bit so it's visible. And now that we have a first person message list, remember this is the first person component, so instead of message list.get on line 23, we want first person message list.get. So this is first person message list. Now that's it for the message list prop. The next thing we want to work on is the handle send message function. This handle send message function is going to update both the first person message list and the second person message list. Right inside of our function we have first person message list dot merge, and then we want this array, so let's copy this and we'll paste it right on line 9. Now for first person message list is going to be primary, and we want to also update the second person message list. So instead of message list.merge, we have second person message list.merge, and then it's going to be secondary. So we're updating the first person message list and we're updating the second person message list, but the difference is that the person property in the first person message is primary and the person property in the second person message is secondary. But that's not all. If we go back to the second person component, you see that we're still using message list. So we want to do the same thing for the second person component. Let's copy the handle send message function and we'll paste that in the second person component. And we also want to copy line 6 and replace that with what we currently have in the second person component. We'll paste it right there on line 6, and we have a first person message list and second person message list. So for the message list prop, we're going to use the second person message list, and we have a handle send message function. So let's add a handle send message prop. So handle, that's on send message rather, on send message is equal to handle send message. All right, now for first person message list, we want it to be secondary, so this is the second person component, and for second person message list we want it to be primary. Let's go back to our browser and test this out. Back to our browser. Hello Cortana. Look at that. So it's on the right of Mycroft and on the left of Cortana. Let's try it from Cortana. So hello Mycroft. Awesome. So right of Cortana and left of Mycroft. And that's it for creating, accessing and updating nested states with HookState. This is a very big deal, and you appreciate it when you try to do it with other state management tools. HookState makes it look so easy. One last thing that I added in the demo just for aesthetics is the setTimeout method. What that means is whenever Mycroft sends a message and says hello, it appears on Mycroft first of all and then waits for 500 milliseconds before appearing on Cortana, and that's just to simulate a network experience, make it look like a real chat. So let's add the setTimeout method. We'll do that first with the first person component, and we have the setTimeout method. Inside of it we have a function and we have a 500 milliseconds, so that's 500. We'll take the second person message list dot merge call and put it inside the setTimeout method. We want to do the same thing for the second person component. Right inside the second person component, this time around it's for the first person message list update. So first person message list on line 14, and we have a setTimeout method. We have the function and our 500 milliseconds. So this is 500 milliseconds. Okay, so we should break this down and backspace. All right, we can now move this first person updates inside the method. And that's the setTimeout method. Let's save this back to our browser. Hello Cortana again. So hello again. And look at that. So wait for 500 milliseconds before updating the other state. And hello to you too. That's TOO for 2. Nice. And that's it for handling state management with HookState. Let's wrap up. Hey, you're right. In this tutorial, we've learned how to work with HookState for state management in React applications. We've seen how to create global states, we've seen how to access and modify them, and we've learned this by building a chat application. HookState has a lot more features that you should explore, like the local state, for example. The local state works just like the global state. The difference is in how we create it. There are also other plugins that you might want to check out, like the local storage persistence plugin, the broadcasted plugin, and so many other very useful features. The documentation is easy to understand. There are very good examples right inside of this documentation. I'm gonna leave all the relevant links in the description of this video. Please check them out. If you like the project we've built in this tutorial, please help me out and give the repository a star on GitHub. Also do me a favor and like this video and hit the subscribe button. I would really appreciate that. See you in my next video.